What's up, vapors? Thanks for checking out Daily Vape TV. My name is Nick, and welcome to Fresh Build Week. That's right, we've got 5 build videos on the way this week. Today is the first of those videos, and today we're going to be doing a very simple cloud setup. If you're looking for huge plumes of vapor, or you want to beat your friends at the local cloud competition, then make sure you pay attention to this video, because that's exactly what you're going to get out of this particular build here. This is for all you mechanical mod guys. This is for all you guys that just want clouds, bro, clouds. So let's go ahead, grab your tools, grab your mod, your wick, your addy, your wire, all that good stuff. Let's go down to the close-up view and build this thing up. Alright guys, so as you can see here, I have all the tools laid out for you. That's exactly what we're going to be needing today. I'll just quickly go through everything. First of all, of course, we need our wire. I have some Mad Rabbit 23 gauge N90 wire. I know some people may be sensitive to nickel, so if you are, then feel free to use 22 gauge Kanthal. You should get about the same resistance out of this build here. I have pre-cut about a foot of this stuff. That's what we're going to be needing for this build. I have a Allen key. That's what we're going to be using for the posts. This uses Allen key headed screws. I have some scissors, some basic scissors for trimming our wicks. We have some ceramic tweezers to tune up our coils and to help out with the wicking on this build. I have a coil jig here with a 3.5mm bit on it. That's what you'll be needing. You can try a different bit size, but I cannot guarantee the resistance will be the same, so therefore your vaping experience might be slightly different, but something about 3.5mm in diameter will do. Next up, we have our wire cutters. Flush cuts, of course, work best because that's the way you're going to get the closest fit on your wires, and some pliers as well. These are going to be useful for bending up our wire to get the most efficient vape experience. So let's go ahead and get started and wrap some coils. So the first step in the coil wrapping process, you want to just take your wire. I usually bend it in half, and then I clip where I feel like the halfway point is, so that's right about there. And we have now 2 pieces of wire. This is going to be a dual coil today, so that's what we're going to be needing that for. Now you have your bit here. This is the coil jig, Coil Master coil jig. I'm going to be wrapping one coil using the coil jig, and then I'll show you how to do it without. So first things first, you want to put that wire through that little slot at the top here. Then you want to just grip the wire with your thumb and forefinger, thumb or forefinger rather, and just start about a half a wrap on one side there. Now you take your appropriate sized receiving end of the bit, and you're just going to spin this up 6 times. We're doing a 6 wrap coil today. So the first one, since we did a half wrap, that's already 2 coils right there. Then we're going to go 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now you want to put a little bit of pressure this way on the bit so that all the wires wrap up nice next to each other and they end up really close. Now usually what I do is I'll take it off the bit and then put it back on to straighten out the first lead wire. You want to just kind of straighten that out by hand a little bit, or you could use your pliers if you really wanted to. And there you go. We have a really nice 6 wrap coil. Let me get you a good shot of that. So there you go. As you can see there, we have a perfect 6 wrap coil all set to go. Now the next one I'm going to do is going to be by hand. And I'll just show you, for those of you that don't own a coil jig out there, you can do this by hand. It's really not a problem at all. So usually when you wrap by hand, you wrap it on a screwdriver or something like that. So I'm not actually going to be using the top hole on this one, just to show you that you can do it just by gripping onto the wire against the thicker part of whatever you're wrapping around, something like a screwdriver. You want to do your same kind of 90-degree bend on there, and then put a lot of tension towards yourself when you do this. And you want to just keep pulling all the way around and making sure those wraps line up really nice next to each other. That's the way you're going to get the most consistency out of your coils here, and make sure that the wire is seated right next to each other. So we're just going to keep going around until we got 6 wraps. And just like that, we have our second coil. I'll show you guys another close-up of that. Not as pretty as the first one that we wrapped, but you know what? I feel like just for getting the hang of building and things like that, this will definitely do. So I'm gonna back off the camera. I'll show you my next little trick that I do. So real quick, I'm gonna show you a tip that's gonna help you center your coils. So first thing, you're gonna need your pliers. Now you wanna just bend up, take the lead right next to the coil and bend it 90 degrees towards the outside here to make it parallel with whatever you're wrapping around. Then you're going to leave about, 3 or 4 millimeters of space. You want to just kind of put it against whatever addy you're going to be wrapping on and just kind of measure the space between the post and where you want your coil to sit. And then you just take it wherever that is and bend it right back. So you have two 90-degree bends on there. What that's going to do for you is just help to center your coil, and that's going to make it so you have an even amount of wicking on both sides. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the other coil off camera just to save a little bit of time, but I'll be right back and we'll install these coils. All right guys, so as you can see, I have my 2 coils all ready to go. On a 2-post like the Velocity right here that I have, I usually do 90-degree bends on both sides of the coil just so I can get it perfectly centered. So I also use the over-under technique on the Velocity style decks. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of put the coil in just nice and snug against the posts, and I do a little 90-degree bend when I have it through the posts on the opposite side so it stays nice and in place. Then I just tighten down that wire like so. Next thing you want to do is grab your clippers and snip off the excess wire at the back of the coil here. And you just want to get it as flush as possible. So what I do normally is just straighten that wire back out after I have tightened down those screws. Hold on to one piece of the wire and just cut it nice and flush. All right guys, so as you can see here, we have our coils all installed. One thing I want to do before I heat these coils up is just make sure they're even every which way you look at them. So they look pretty even there. They're pretty much centered as much as they can be, and they look pretty even left and right, up and down. I think we're good. So another thing I like to do is just kind of pop my cap on real quick just to make sure I have cap clearance, and it looks like we're all good. So there we go. I think we're ready to get some heat on these coils. I have my wattage setting very low, only at about 50 watts right now, just to tune up those coils. So first thing you want to do is just kind of tap the fire button to get some heat going. Before you glow your coils, make sure you have your ceramic tweezers at the ready because you're going to need them for this stage here. Now I have this set at very low wattage so you can see specifically if there's any hot spots in these coils. So one thing you want to do is just slowly ramp them up and make sure there's no hot spots. If you see the legs glow or anything like that, then that's going to be a problem. You got to work it out. And one thing you can do to help along this whole process here is just kind of pinch your coils up as you're heating them. You can only do this with ceramic tweezers. You can't do it with regular tweezers, but you can actually pinch the coils as you're pressing the fire button so that you can get it to stick a little bit closer, tighter together, and that's going to help with your coils glowing nice and evenly. That's the other thing you want to look out for, is making sure they're glowing from the inside out and very evenly. So you want to make sure that one coil isn't firing up faster than the other one. If that's the case, then just double check all of your screws, because that's the first thing that tends to be the problem. As the wire gets heated, it tends to change shape a little bit and can loosen up inside your terminals here. So I'm just going to check out my screws real quick, and I can already see that I've had about maybe an eighth of a turn or so on one of those screws, so maybe that could be the reason why one of my coils isn't quite behaving. But this is just kind of the thing I do for every single time I build. You just want to double check everything before you give it the full high wattage test. All right, I think we're ready to fire this thing up at a high wattage. I have it set to 120 watts. The final resistance came out to 0.11, which is a little bit too low for a mechanical mod, so we're going to be using it on this 200 watt box mod, the Council of Vapor Tempest today. And let's go ahead and show you what the glow shot looks like when it's fully ready to go. And there you can see the ramp up time is a lot less on the high wattage mode here, and that's good because it means you're going to be able to do your inhale a lot faster. You're going to get a lot more vapor production. So let's let these coils cool off and we'll wick it. All right guys, so as you can see here, I have my Japanese cotton. I'm actually going to use just one thin layer of this stuff for this build today. This is how I usually do it. So I have about a thin layer here. You can probably see the thickness. And I don't want to use this edge here. I usually trim this off just because it makes it a little bit easier for me, and it makes the wicking a little bit more fluffy, which is what I like. Now this is a 3.5 millimeter coil, so we're going to use almost this entire sheet for this one coil here. So what I normally do is just pinch and roll just one little tiny tip of it, and the rest just kind of follows along, but leave it very fluffy. So I get that pinch really good by pinching it between my thumb and forefinger, and my forefinger on this hand here, and I just kind of tuck it into place as I roll it. Every few centimeters or so, I just kind of add another little tuck in there, and then I just kind of continue the roll all the way through the cotton here, and that definitely helps out a lot. So I know I'm not going to need that much cotton in there, so I'm just going to tear that off real quick and just kind of finish this roll, just pinching one end very tight. The rest I leave as loose as possible. We're going to bring our mod in real quick, and here we go. Let's go ahead and try this out. This is going to take a lot to get used to this feeling of how thick you actually need your cotton, but once you get it down, it's just like riding a bike, and you really can't go wrong. I mean, I tend to get this pretty much first try. I mean, sometimes it takes me a couple of tries to get a coil just right, especially if I'm using a diameter that I'm not familiar with. I tend to put a little bit extra cotton in there the first pass, but that's no big deal. It's better to start off with too much and just trim it off little by little, rather than starting off with not enough cotton and having to roll a whole other sheet. I also like very fluffy cotton, so I fluff up both ends of this here before I tuck it into the well, just because I like breaking up those fibers, because if the fibers are compacted too much, it's just not going to be quite as absorbent. So that's why I break up these fibers and make the ends really, really puffy. I also kind of drag the cotton through the coil a little bit by just kind of pulling on these two ends and just pulling outwards there, and that usually lets go a few of the little thinner layer of cotton on the outside of this coil. Just kind of thins it out, you know. It's like just taking the outer layer off, just so it makes it maximum absorbency. I don't know. And now what I'm doing is just taking my tweezers and fitting that cotton down inside the well. And I try not to really mess with it too much, because I don't want it to be too tight in the base. I want it to be fairly loose, because that way you get better absorbency. I'm telling you, anytime you compact your cotton, you're losing absorbency with your cotton, and therefore it's going to be more dry hits, and you're going to have to drip more often. So I tend not to drip as often as others, I feel like, just because of the way I wick, and it's helped me out quite a bit. So there we go. We're looking pretty good right now. And I think we're ready for some juice. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to drip on one of my favorite juices that I'm vaping, which is the Blaz melon flavor. It's blue raspberry, watermelon. It's absolutely delicious. Alright guys, so one final thing before we go back to the main screen. With every one of my videos, I like to give a little preview of the vapor production here. So we're still at 120 watts, so let's go ahead and fire this thing up and see where we're at with vapor production. Not too shabby, I think you'll agree. One more little shot here, and then we'll go back to the main screen. So as you can see, I am getting plenty of vapor production out of this build, which is exactly what I wanted to show you guys. Just a quick, easy go-to setup for you cloud chasers out there, especially those of you guys that love cloud competitions and things like that. Make sure you try out this build, because it's worked for me really well in the past. So I do have to note that this build came out to 0.1 ohms on the money, which is the reason I have it set up on this 1880650 200 watt regulated box mod instead of a unregulated single 18650 tube style mechanical mod. Most cloud competitions will allow you to build at 0.1 ohms or higher. However, I feel like that would be unsafe to use on a regular basis. Most of those cloud comp guys will change out batteries in between rounds, and they don't use the same atomizer for their everyday vaping as they do during their cloud competitions. So I just wanted to note that little safety factor real quick. So anyways, guys, that about does it for Fresh Build Week Day 1. Make sure you stay tuned for Day 2, where we're going to be doing a flavor build. Leave me some comments in the box below of what you think of this build, whether or not you want to try it out for yourself, and if you do try it out, leave me your thoughts in the comments box below. Of course, if you like this video, then make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more videos just like this. Check out the advocacy links I have in the description. Make sure you fight for your right to vape, and check me out on all my different social medias. I have Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you check me out on there. Like my page on Facebook, check out my Snapchat, and of course, if you want to leave me a couple of bucks on my Patreon, that would be awesome as well. Anyways, guys, thanks for joining me, and as always, vape on! Gonna be